Hey boys and girls, it's Miss Beasley. I have a story for you guys. It is called Bubba and the Cowboy Prince, and it's a fractured Texas tale. So when you hear the word fracture, I bet you think of a fractured fairy tale, and that's exactly what this is, a fractured fairy tale. So I want you to think back on our unit about fractured fairy tales as we read along and try to make the connections to another very familiar fairy tale. And you know how Miss Beasley likes to do her voices. So here we go. Once a strapping young fella named Bubba lived on a ranch with his wicked stepdaddy and his hateful and lazy stepbrothers, Dwayne and Milton. Bubba's stepdaddy spoiled Dwayne and Milton to no end, but Bubba worked from sunup to sundown doing the chores of 3 ranch hands. Bubba never complained though. He loved ranching. Dwayne and Milton spent their days sitting on horseback, bossing Bubba around. "Get them doggies along there, Bubba," ordered Dwayne. "Yeah, and watch out for them cow patties," added Milton. "You know how Daddy hates for you to track up in the houses." Now, Miss Lorene, who lived down the road a piece, was the prettiest and the richest gal in all the county. She owned the biggest spread west of the Brazos, and she loved ranching too. But it was lonesome work, and after a while, she decided it was time for some companionship. "I aim to find myself a fella," she said, "one who loves ranching as much as I do. Oh, and it wouldn't hurt if he was just as cute as Cow Deer either." Miss Lorene decided to throw a ball. She sent invitations to all the ranchers in Texas. Soon the day of the ball arrived, and Milton and Dwayne spent all day gussying up their finest studs. Bubba about ran himself ragged, waiting on them. "Bubba," shouted Dwayne, "fetch my bolo tie." "Bubba," shouted Milton, "get my boots polished." "Bubba," shouted the wicked stepdaddy, "brush them horses and watch that wagon." Are you making the connection, boys and girls? By the time Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy was ready to go, Bubba was exhausted. Still, they climbed into the wagon. Bubba asked, "Can't you wait for me to go? I want to go to the dance with Miss Lorene too." Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy hooted and hollered. "Why, you're sorrier than a steer in a stockyard," said Dwayne. "Can you imagine Miss Lorene dancing with the likes of you? Miss Lorene wouldn't even wipe the dirt clods off her boots with that old raggedy shirt of yours, and you smell more like the cattle than the cattle do. Ha 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 ha." Bubba looked at himself. It was true. He didn't have a decent shirt to wear. His boots were downright disgraceful, and he did smell a bit rough. Milton and Dwayne were right. Miss Lorene wouldn't dance with the likes of him. Bubba hung his head. He felt lower than a rattlesnake in a gully. Milton and Dwayne and their wicked daddy went off to the ball. Bubba mounted his horse and headed for the pasture to check on the herd. The sky was getting darker than a black bull at midnight. It looked like a Texas thunderstorm was brewing. Bubba had just arrived at the cow pasture when a bolt of lightning struck, knocking him off his horse. Bubba was stunned for a moment, but when he picked himself up, he heard a voice. "Go to the bowl," said the voice. Bubba looked around. No one was there except him and the cows. Now, Bubba figured he'd balked the jeebers out of his bean, because the voice was coming from a cow. She had chewed her cud for a moment, and then she said, "Now, I'm going to tell you, this is the way cows chew cud. I'm your fairy god cow, and I can help you go to the ball." Bubba sat up, rubbing his head. "I'd like to go, Miss God Cow, but I don't have anything to wear." And the fairy god cow swished her tail, and Bubba's raggedy clothes changed into the handsomest cow duds he had ever laid eyes on. His jeans were crisp, his boots were shiny, and his shirt, it was dazzling, and his Stetson, that's a hat, boys and girls, was whiter than a new salt lick. "Why, I look downright purty," said Bubba. The fairy god cow swished her tail again, and nearby steer turned into the most beautiful white stallion. that's a horse, that Bubba had ever seen. Now you go off to the ball, Bubba, and have a good time dancing with Miss Lorene. But you best but come home by midnight. I forgot to do my cow chewing cud voice. Because that's when the magic runs out. Yahoo! Shouted Bubba as he jumped on the white horse and he galloped off to the ball. But when Bubba arrived, the hoedown was in full swing. But every time Miss Lorene finished a dance, she yawned. Oh, there goes another $10 Stetson and a 5-cent head, she complained. Where are all my real cowboys? But by the time Bubba turned to dance with Miss Lorene, it was almost midnight. Soon she saw Bubba. Miss Lorene's eyes lit up. Why, you're as cute as a cow's ear, she said. Bubba blushed and then took Miss Lorene in his arms and started dancing. Dwayne and Milton turned purple with jealousy. Who's that dude? Said Dwayne. I don't recollect seeing him before, but he looks a mite familiar, said Milton. Do something, said their wicked daddy. That boy is winning Miss Lorene's heart. As it turned out, Milton and Dwayne didn't have to do a thing because Bubba and Miss Lorene were in the middle of a do-si-doing when the clock struck midnight. You know what that means. Suddenly, Bubba's fine duds were turned into dirty rags that he usually wore around the ranch. He looked sorry, and he smelled worse. What is that awful smell? Asked Milton. What's Bubba? Shouted Dwayne. Bubba turned 14 shades of red, apologized to Miss Lorene, and ran out of the room. Wait, she yelled, chasing after him. But Bubba didn't wait. He jumped on his cow and he lumbered off into the night. In the ruckus, he lost one of his his dirty cowboy boots. Miss Lorene clasped it in her arms. Oh, this is the boot of a real cowboy, the man I want to marry, and I'm a-aiming to find him. Miss Lorene went back inside, and though she had asked everybody at the ball, nobody knew who the mysterious cowboy was. Nobody except Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy. But they weren't talking. The next day, Miss Lorene went out ranch to ranch looking for the cowboy who owned the boot. And when she came to Dwayne and Milton's ranch, both brothers tried on the boot. But it didn't fit. Miss Lorene had just climbed on her horse to leave when Bubba rode up. He was dirty and sweaty, and smelly, and he was from working the cows. And he was only wearing one boot. You guys know where this is going, right? Miss Lorene jumped off her horse and ran over to Bubba. Try this on, she cried. Bubba took his dirty old boot and pulled it on. Much obliged, ma'am, he said, blushing. It fit perfectly. Oh, you're my prince in cowboy boots, shouted Miss Lorene. I recognize that smell anywhere. Oh, marry me, cowboy, and help me work on my ranch. Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy, they threw chicken fits. But Bubba just smiled, and he and Miss Lorene rode off into the sunset. They lived happily ever after, roping and cowpoking and getting them doggies along. The end. And I bet you could compare and contrast this story with another very famous fairy tale. I miss you guys, and I love you, and I can't wait to see you really soon.